Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamey Daddy channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. So we're going to continue this deep dive because I think, like I always say, it's very important for you to find a way to cover all bases, dot all I's, cross all T's, look into whichever avenue to find out information that you need to, because a company like Ubisoft Massive is more than likely not going to tell you. So that being said, I don't know why that's their own standard. I don't know why that's their corporate policy that they follow. But, you also see this in other Ubisoft studios as well. So I think it's kind of a corporate thing. We just have a community that has a live service game. So we probably are in need of that communication more than anything else. But it appears right now the studio is kind of on a hiatus to stay very quiet. Now, I'm making this video because fellow content creator Epic Slayers made a video saying he was really worried about, the changes making, that were going on at Massive. And more than anything, I think this video is for you, Mr. Epic. I really want to go ahead and delve in deep to say, all fears or all worries, or I would say concerns, are not unfounded. In fact, I think they're quite genuine and valid. And I know a lot of what I'm about to say in this video is, stuff that you already know, but I think it's important to go back and look at those things. So one of the really important things that I do from time to time is when I'm a little bored, I'll just go ahead and go to Massive Ubisoft's YouTube channel. That YouTube channel has a lot of information on there. In fact, one of the really interesting things about that YouTube channel is if you were to make your way there, you're going to see that they have a lot of videos pertaining to some of the things that they actually are doing within their studio. So first of all, there's something that they do called the Fika sessions. And this is basically where they sit down and interview some of the developers within the studio, some people who hold some of the roles of, I would say, development, design, and they do these episodes, I think, about once a month. I think the last few that they've done are with some of the developers, like this, this developer here is a senior lighting artist. This other one here is one with a UX designer, and basically the interview basically opens up a lot of the conversation as to what happens within the development process. Sometimes they'll even throw some promotional stuff out there, like this particular video here, where, I think David Poltfeld is his name, who's basically the former MD, or probably still the MD of Massive. I don't know what they're doing in regard to replacing him. He's basically talking about Ubisoft Massive as a studio and some of the things that they've done. Now, here's one of the things that's really interesting about this particular video, this episode 5 Inside Massive Home of Greatness video, and I suggest that Division agents actually watch this. Now, I get it. Some of you are here. You watch all these videos, by the way. I even saw some of you that comment on my videos. You have comments on these videos. So you guys are the MVPs. Y'all have watched these videos way even before me. So I just want to say that's quite interesting. Now, here's the really cool thing about this particular video. The developer, the MD of Massive Ubisoft at the time of the making of this video mentioned a few things. He said when they created this, the Division 2, they realized that it was actually becoming a successful game, and Ubisoft jumped in to invest more in Ubisoft Massive. And this is actually one of the few studios in Europe that creates world-class games. A lot of the European studios are support studios, and it was quite interesting to see how they actually went ahead to speak about all the other franchises they have and some of the successes that, the studio has achieved and some of the vision that they have for the future. And one thing he said that was actually quite critical, it was interesting that he said that. He said the only thing that they miss, and so they said we have Avatar, we have The Division, we have Star Wars. Now, these statements are quite interesting because these are franchises that this studio right now is going to be spearheading within the Ubisoft name. Now, also you have to understand that they put a disclaimer here saying that the Star Wars is a 2021 Lucasfilm IP, so they acknowledge that. They also acknowledge the Avatar footage that they used as well as the brand as well, but The Division is their own. Now, here's one thing that we Division folk have to pay attention to is Ubisoft, even though they may make some of these other brand name IP games, like, the Mario Rabbids game or whatever it is, you have to realize that they enjoy and love their own IPs more than anything else. The reason is because they actually don't have to share any of the profits with anybody else. It's all theirs. So even as much as Massive Ubisoft is going to be focusing on Avatar and even the Star Wars project, let us not, basically say that they're going to throw away the Division, because that Division game is the reason they spent a bunch of money investing in massive studios as a whole. In fact, they built them a new building because the Division game was quite successful. And again, onto that point, to what David Polfeld said in this video, is the thing that he's talking about is the missing piece for Massive. And he said what they are looking for. He said, see, so we have the ingredients, but what we still need is the best people in this industry to work here. So this video is basically a recruitment video. Come work with us. We need the best people in the world. Now, here's something pretty cool. So I went digging. I went looking at the job listings at Ubisoft Massive. This is the second thing that you do. You look at the Ubisoft Massive YouTube channel, then you go straight to the job listing site. And in the job listing site, credit to Epic Slayers, he mentioned that they actually have a few, they have an unannounced project. That's how we put it. So I went and said, there's no way. I've not seen any unannounced project. All I've seen is a Star Wars, which changed from unannounced project to Star Wars. And the Avatar project also has changed to Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. Well, believe you me, there are job openings for unannounced projects within Ubisoft Massive. Now, this is very, very interesting. I wanted to go ahead and leave this particular point of order out of it, but I'm forced to mention it. So in one of my videos, and I've never seen this before, in my 4 years of making Division content, or maybe 5 years, I don't think any developer has ever openly commented on any of my videos. Now, usually on Twitter, that's where the open forum is. Everybody kind of sends, comments back and forth. But I mentioned something, and I asked, where is Yannick Branchot, who is the associate creative director of the Division 2, and I was asking, where is he? And I mentioned something about a Terminator game, and he replied in that video and said, a Terminator game sounds exciting. Now, it may be a fake or spoof account, but I doubt it. I think it's his account, and I think if there's an unannounced project within Ubisoft Massive that they're hiring for, and some of these positions are not necessarily super core positions. By the way, they're positions that are, yes, they're technical animation, positions. I think they're still positions that, they probably need somebody to come in and, just fill in or maybe even add to the team. I think that's more than likely what he is working on currently. And yes, it's hard to put the pieces together, especially when there's no announcement. It's also important to address that, the talk around the town right now is that Ubisoft Massive is more than likely going to be giving us apparel for the next seasons. And that's a possibility. Once the season comes into place, or once the new content comes into play, we're probably going to be seeing apparel events and all of that stuff, which is something that's always been done. I've seen some sentiment in the community against it. People have said, we're going to be getting more outfits and clothes. Y'all, we've been getting outfits and clothes in the Division for years. Let's not make it sound like it's some crazy thing. I think more importantly is we need to be looking at what exactly this company is working on. Now, check it out. On this platform, you're going to see that the job openings and the job hirings are for projects that are unannounced, and then Avatar and Star Wars takes on everything else. But then the question is, who's going to be working on any future Division game, and who's also working on this, content that's coming for the Division 2 maybe this year or next year, depending on when it comes out. The question is, they're using other sister studios to work on that Division, content. I mean, that video that I showed you, that recruitment video, one of the developers said that Ubisoft Massive is actually one of the few European studios that's able to create world-class games. I think they've been in the mix for such a long time, and they've been able to harness a lot of talent over the years that once they dropped the Division, it seems Ubisoft didn't even know that that game was going to be successful. I think they just kind of said, okay, let's just, take a crapshoot at this game, and then boom, became the fastest selling game in Ubisoft history. And they were like, crap, we have, a gem in this studio when it comes to some of the best talent in the world. Now, somebody will probably fight me in the comments section for that statement, but the reality is Massive actually has some of the best developers out there. It's the truth. I can even prove it to you. Go open a video game engine and just try to create like the base of operations and create a multiplayer session where people can just jump into that area and just see how hard that is. That alone by itself is it's a work of art. Now, yes, Bungie and other, gaming companies do it, but to do it at the scale and the level that Ubisoft Massive actually put it together in a Division game is just something it's just a little under a gaming miracle, if you were to ask me from a technical perspective. This is the technical side. This is the programming side that I'm talking about. So that's something to consider. Now, here is another really interesting and important aspect of this entire conversation that I wanted to make sure that, I highlight. There is something that is quite critical with the entirety of the Division project right now. And, that's the fact that there is no content. And I know a lot of gamers are, or people who, most of us who play this game anyways, we come back for our weekly legendaries, but, people are still worried. Some people are saying the game has been abandoned and all of the above and all of that stuff. The truth is, the Division and games like these, if you intend to play these games continuously for a long period of time, I think what's going to happen is the, inevitable disappointment will set in. In the Division 1 days, people felt the exact same way. In fact, I started my channel at the end of 2016 when there was really very, minuscule content to actually cover. I just covered, discussion topics on the game and even potentially the next game. And that's where I started my channel from. So I started my channel in the drought of Division content. So I've seen this before. And so some people say, man, you're still optimistic, you're dreaming. And I'm like, it's kind of what I'm used to, where there's nothing going on. Now, what I'd encourage people to do is, if you're not like us that's developed that kind of immunity, because that's what I call it, it's almost like it's a disease, is that you just focus on playing other games. You see, the beauty about these video games is, you really have to understand that within the gaming scene, you're going to have to just put up with a lot of the different issues and a lot of the stress that comes with video game development and even the way they serve their community of gamers. Because at the end of the day, there's so much that goes into making a video game. It's very, very challenging to be able to put a game to the market right now. And these studios, even though they've, in a sense, like a studio like or a publisher like Ubisoft, even though they've harnessed the arts to be able to punch out multiple games at the same time in different quarters of every given year, you still have to respect that difficulty that the video game development process has to face, the challenges. Now, yes, they do have one weird secret weapon, which is the talent of European developers. Now, I mean, American developers, I don't know. I'm not, dogging on American developers. I'm just saying it just happens to be that from far wide, there are just a lot of development talent that is very much available, in Europe. They call it, in fact, sometimes we even say, even from our Eastern European countries alone, you have all that Slavic magic going on where they're able to punch out games even in the weirdest of circumstances. And that's not to even talk about even Western Europe and even some other European nations where, young people finish high school and they go straight into development and game design, institutions. We don't have a plethora of those in the US. That's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. In Europe, those kinds of institutions are readily available for a number of people if they really wanted to get into that. So they have that advantage. And so I think Ubisoft has harnessed that in its European talent and is able to get these games all ready and going. Now, again, I'm not also dogging on, say, Canada and Montreal, which is also a huge game development hub. But again, Ubisoft has got like a few studios, already in Canada, in Montreal and in Quebec and in Toronto, and they're already harnessing all of this stuff. And so you think about all of the talent that Ubisoft has available, and they're still facing all these difficulties, then there must be some external trends and some external issues. Rainbow Six Extraction already delayed. Far Cry, Far Cry 6 already got its delay from last year, and people are still hoping that they can still even get the game this year. And so there's just so much that you have to consider. So if the Division hasn't gotten its own content, I think what we usually just, look towards is just saying, we'll just be playing other games until then. But for the meantime, it appears that Ubisoft Massive still considers itself a primary, progenitor of the Division project and holds that strongly at the core of what it calls itself, at the core of what it calls itself, or actually identifies as a game development firm that's able to have brought a world-class game, from being such a small studio, almost say irrelevant in a sense. They used to make some Assassin's Creed and some Far Cry stuff back in the day. They made their own game, but they never really were in the spotlight, like say Ubisoft Toronto, or I can't remember the Ubisoft studio that did the, the Splinter Cell game. Ubisoft Massive was not necessarily at that level of recognition. recognition. But then once they dropped the Division 2, it's like everybody was like, whoa, Snowdrop, all of this stuff. So I say that's basically where all of this kind of leads me to. It's just pretty much just looking at the overall, aspect of their production scheme. Now, one really challenging thing too to do in today's gaming world is to provide both this perspective and also the critical perspective as well when it comes to when these gaming companies actually get off on the wrong footing with their communities. It's quite challenging. I mean, if they do something terrible, you have to say, man, this is a publisher issue versus a developer issue, because the developers are very talented. The developers are actually very good at what they do, but many a times the publisher throws them in this really weird position. And then now what you have is, the entirety of the player base is just not satisfied. And sometimes we get to, take that out on the developers themselves. And maybe sometimes the developers may have a role to play in this, but I don't know how much, and then at the same time, give credit to the developers and not look like you're giving credit to some corporation that really cares a lot more about profits. And so that's kind of the challenge I've had to face in creating content myself. But overall, like I've said, it's just one of those things where you stay frosty, you take it easy. I think eventually these things will fall into place. So, colleague, bro, it's going to be fine. We're going to be okay. Stay frosty. Peace out.